A Giants podcast for Giants fans
by Giants fans.
It's Shaun Morash.
On the sideline, into the end zone. Touchdown, Giants!
From the offseason to the wins and the losses, it's time to take one Giant step.
Giddy freaking up. Welcome to One Giant Step. I'm Shaun Morash with Bryce Gelman. We are a little more than a week away from round one. Then, of course, round 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's just his ass of the NFL draft and the New York Giants, of which Art Stapleton, who covers the Giants, NorthJersey.com, stated today, boy, what a dramatic couple days we could, I'm paraphrasing, the echo chamber that will be Giant Twitter. He's right on all of that, except for the fact that here I am as I view myself as one of those diehard Giant fans in media and existence, anything, and I still just have not gotten myself fired up here, and I need to be as a podcast host. I am dreading maybe this draft more than excited about it. I've tackled that over the past couple of weeks, but nonetheless, we're going to try to pump some life back into expectations here. Bryce Gelman. Bryce, you feeling any more excited? Or are you still along the lines of me of, I don't know what's going to happen?
We talked about it last week, Shaun. It's hard to get so jacked up for this draft because who knows, man? Like right. from where we were last year, end of the first round, to the year before being, two first the top 10 picks. There really isn't. It's like this middle ground right now where we don't really know what the Giants are going to do. And the Giants obviously extremely underperformed last year. So I don't know. Maybe next week it's going to change. But as of right now, I'm anxious. The anxiety is rising.
Yeah, I'm not happy. Put it this way. If the Giants get one of these big three receivers, I'm going to be happy. If they get Drake May, I'm going to be happy. They get J.J. McCarthy, I'm going to have to bite my tongue and go, I think this isn't going to work out, but obviously I pray and hope I'm wrong because I've been wrong on a ton of draft picks before. But I think it's just the idea if this team was picking top three or their actual quarterback position internally was really settled, we have Jones worries, I'd be way more jacked up. Yes, we're pairing him with the number one wide receiver, or yes, I know we're probably going to get one way or another a franchise-altering quarterback. I just feel this no man's land of guesswork, and I kind of feel like the Giants are going to be stuck ultimately and kind of kicking the can down the road on quarterback. Maybe not. Maybe so. More on that in a second. But first, the big news today, this is Wednesday, April 17th. So actually, we're 8 days away from the NFL draft on the time of taping this. I woke up this morning, did the old crack of the knuckles. All right. Internally, the Rangers are going to play the Caps. Tonight, we find out Sixers or Heat, who the Knicks are going to play. You probably, if you're listening to this on Thursday, Friday, you've already heard that. And I said to myself, Yankees struggling. Giants. Wait, what am I seeing Jordan Renan tweet about Bill Belichick here? Wait, what happened with Bill Belichick here? So there's basically a hit piece on Bill Belichick on how he didn't get the Atlanta Falcon job. He felt essentially blindsided by the hire of Raheem Morris. And apparently, reportedly, Robert Kraft may or may not, or let's just say may have placed calls to the Falcons warning them not to hire Bill Belichick. Difficult to work with. So you might say, Shaun, what does it have to do with the Giants? Well, as part of this, Bill Belichick reportedly has 3 teams on his wish list to continue his coaching career with, all in the NFC East. The Giants, right at the top of the list because we know his fondness for the Giants when he was a coordinator. The Cowboys and Eagles all being on that list. Now, the Cowboy-Eagle angle, this is where I find it so crazy. I don't want Bill Belichick coaching the Cowboys or the Eagles. Because inevitably, I feel like those teams will be better with Bill Belichick coaching the team. But I'm also a hypocrite here, Bryce. Because
you don't want it for the Giants.
I love Brian Daboll. And I want Brian Daboll and Joe Shane to work out. If they prove to not be good GMs or a good head coach, well, so be it. I can't control that. But I've seen enough bad coaching on the Giants and enough good coaching, the Coughlin days, the Fossil era when you were a young lad, Bryce, to know what good coaching is. And I think Brian Daboll's a really good coach. And I don't want to have this ghost of Bill Belichick, this shadow of Bill Belichick weighing on the Giants. And oh, by the way, I don't want both Brian Daboll and I'm throwing Joe Shane in there because we all know Bill Belichick and total control and all that nonsense. I don't want them reading these reports a week before the NFL draft And I would hope that they're professionals, that this doesn't alter their thinking or not, but I know they're human beings, and you know the name Bill Belichick and the way it is weighted, and you know just that being floated in the atmosphere that John Mara can even think about it. I just don't want any giant draft plans coming down to, if they're on a 50-50 split, what they think saves their job for another year if they're anticipating a bad year, that being Dable or Shane, Bryce.
Shaun, this is like the Knicks clearing out their entire front office for Phil Jackson back in the early 2010s.
Yeah.
This is the same situation, bringing in a guy.
Great
I understand different situation because Phil Jackson wasn't going to coach the team. He wanted to just sit back and do nothing. But Bill Belichick is going to run the organization. He wouldn't come in just to be the head coach, just to be under a GM. He'd be running the organization. And you're bringing in a guy who's got an antiquated look at a lot of things that go on in the world of football and drafting. You look at Bill Belichick's last 5 drafts. I mean, do any of those picks really stand out? Gonzalez from last year, but that was, he kind of fell to them. But there are plenty of circumstances that I think could play out over the rest of this year going into next year. And I think that this would be the worst. The fact that, first off, this already came out as a report. And to your credit, this could impact the Giants' plans. They could see this. And hopefully, my hope behind all of this is that John Mara and Tish went to Brian Dable and Joe Schoen and said, don't worry. That it's nonsense. It's not a real report. We have your backs. Go out, kill this draft. You guys will be set for the next 5-10 years as Giants brass. So that's the hope. And if not, then they're going to be looking behind, it's just going to constantly be at the back of their minds of, am I going to be replaced by a six-time Super Bowl champion in Bill Belichick, probably the most successful head coach in football history. I mean, they're human. I understand. Like, you got to be concerned about that at the end of the day.
Of course. And I don't know, this could sound like the most asinine conversation to people listening going, of course, this shouldn't affect anything, this, that, and the other. But the truth is, if Brian Dable and Joe Schoen are sitting here 8 days before the draft and they're torn on one of two things, hey, we're not going to get the quarterback we really coveted. We're going to get quarterback 2 we coveted, but we have to do that by trading up and trading assets. Or, man, do we really want quarterback 2, or do we just stick with a Jones-Lock DeVito situation, look towards quarterbacks next year and take a game-changing wide receiver of like the team has not seen since Odell Beckham? Let's just say there's a 50-50 split in that room. The idea of gambling on it all and trading up to number 4 overall for, either J.J. McCarthy, or if May slips or Daniel slips, although betting odds tell you he's going to the Commanders now. If any of that happens and they go, you know what, we have to make the move because we could sell to John Mara. We've only had 1 year with our rookie quarterback, and it's bad business to, after taking a quarterback to do that. I don't want that being a situation. And any other coach available, other than Bill Belichick, I don't even think this is in play. But Brian Dable and Joe Schoen are football lifers. They know the deal with Bill Belichick. They know the Bill Belichick Giant kind of tie-in for years past. And John Mara, at some point, everybody has like a little bit of a a mortality clock. Like Jerry Jones looks at John Mara's a healthy man, but if he looks at it and goes, man, if I can get a couple of years where Bill Belichick really fills the seats, we're playing competitive football, how do you not as a human get enticed? So I don't like this story dropping before the draft. Hopefully it's nothing, and I trust that Brian Dable and Joe Schoen should stick to their guns and do what they're going to do and not even listen to this cloud, but it's human nature. So I understand.
The last thing I'll say on this, I think it's the least likely of the 3 options. I think out of the 3, can't believe I'm saying this, but I think Dable and Schoen have the longest leash out of Sirianni and Mike McCarthy. I just don't see a chance that the Giants, I mean, besides what you mentioned, the fact that there's already a connection between Belichick and the Giants, the fact that Mara probably has a soft spot for Bill Belichick. But when you look at the situations of those 2 other teams that he's supposedly interested in, I think that those are far more likely than him coming to the Giants. But as you said, I mean, if he goes to one of those teams, they're going to be one of the greatest teams of all time. They'll probably win a Super Bowl. The Giants will be at the mercy of Bill Belichick for the next 3-4 years. We know what's going to happen, but I just can't see it happening with the Giants.
You've already begun crafting my Belichick to the Cowboys take. If he can't win with them, nobody ever will, and they're forever cursed forever. All right, with that, look, we've had the J.J. McCarthy convo the last couple pods. I must be honest, on Tuesday, April 16th, was the first time I felt like I need to brace myself for the idea that J.J. McCarthy and the Giants are going to be a first-round marriage. I still will not waver and tell you I hope that's not the case. I do feel like ultimately, and this is going to sound semi-hypocritical because I like Daniel Jones, the player, I don't like Daniel Jones, the health. I think J.J. McCarthy, to me, is a Daniel Jones. I don't think he'll ever be an elite quarterback. I think he could be a quarterback you obviously can win with a good team, a quarterback that will drive you nuts at times, and it's a matter of health. That's how I've always felt about Daniel Jones. So forget how you, the listener, feels about Daniel Jones. When I say J.J. McCarthy reminds me of just drafting Daniel Jones again, I mean it in terms of what I think his talent base is. Doesn't mean you can't win with him, but it just feels like a guy who's never going to be an elite quarterback to me in the league. Peter Schrager, NFL Network, Fox Sports. He has gotten to Jay Glazer territory in terms of when he puts something out there, it's not just because he's getting paid to make sure he's constantly putting stuff out there. It doesn't mean Ian Rappaport's of the world and Adam Schefter's of the world are wrong, but those guys are officially NFL insiders. What I'm talking about is in terms of mock draft stuff. Million guys at CBS do a good job. Dane Brugler, Athletic, does a good job. We've known Kuiper, McShay, forever. They've done a good job. But be very careful at this time of year because we always do this. Charles Davis does a good job. We always go to mock drafts, and we've gotten used to going to the high-end ones in Giants world for the last, 6-7 years, haven't we? And we compare and contrast. And a lot of times you will see a lot of the same names at the top of mock drafts because obviously people kind of generally know the top guys that are going places. However, remember, Charles Davis, Todd McShay, Dane Brugler, Mel Kiper, Matt Miller. A lot of these mock drafts you've read, what have you noticed? It's their first mock draft. It's their third mock draft. It's their fourth mock draft. It's their fifth mock draft. They are paid to put stuff out constantly during this NFL draft cycle. Clicks, television appearances, radio appearances, all of that. That is their job. They cover the NFL draft the way we cover the New York Giants or people cover the NFL. They cover the NFL draft. Peter Schrager covers the NFL as kind of a hybrid all over the place. He's a talk show personality. He is an NFL insider, sort of, but he talks to plenty of people, but he's not on the level of Schefter and them. And he's also not in the business of just making mock drafts to make mock drafts. But he's pretty good at when he puts stuff out there, including his mock drafts, and with specific nuggets of being really clued in. He doesn't throw stuff against the wall. All right, I've set that all up. Maybe I've glossed Schrager too hard, Gal. I'm going to tell you, Schrager puts out a mock draft yesterday, and basically his bold part of the top 10 of that draft is the Giants are moving up to 4 to take J.J. McCarthy. Again, complete smoke screens everywhere, and I caution everybody on that. Maybe this is a smoke screen. But something about Schrager being the guy that put it out there yesterday and the people that he talks to, and I take what he says seriously, I think this is really in play. Doesn't mean it will happen. Doesn't mean the Cardinals ultimately decide to pull the trigger because they would have to be the team to trade up. It doesn't mean the Patriots don't take him at 3 as opposed to taking Drake May. There's still a million factors. But I do think that maybe, just maybe, we do have to brace ourselves and start accepting the reality that the Giants really do like J.J. McCarthy, and they may not give a damn what any of us think about it.
Shaun, I know you've been in tune with all these mock drafts. I read a lot of these. Everyone that pops up on my Twitter page, my X page, whatever you want to call it. I click on it, I read it, see what the Giants are up to. Every single mock draft, I don't want to say every, I'd say 80 to 90% of mock drafts that I read, one team is trading up for J.J. McCarthy. Right. It's like the league's worst kept secret that he's got interest in the top 4. Top 3 teams don't want to pick him. They're going to go those top
Bryce,
3
not to interrupt. I just want to be, because if you're a diehard listener, thanks as always for listening, subscribing to One Giant Step. I did say, I think it was 2 weeks ago on the pod, that I believe that one of these quarterbacks is going to fall out of the top 6. And I really believe that. I think I have to swerve here, man. I think now this is where the smoke, there's fire territory.
Exactly. You can't look at it any other way, because at this point, you think all these journalists, analysts, whatever you want to call them, would risk their credibility. Not like their credibility would even be risked, because these guys are wrong 95% of the time. But either way, why would they continue to put out stuff that is false. There has to be real interest here from all of the teams in the top 6 in terms of picking, either trading down and letting a team trade up to get McCarthy, or to take McCarthy himself, or just take one of those top 3 quarterbacks. This is the time in the NFL where there's no doubt about it. You need a quarterback to contend. You need someone who is serviceable, who you could slot in there, who has all the weapons, if they're not great, Brock Purdy, that could help guide your team to success. JJ McCarthy, one loss in college in games that he started for, yes, a huge program, a program that had a top 5 offense, the best defense in the country the last 2 years. So you're looking at a guy who has had the success. You could look at it as, it stemmed from how good his teams were, but he didn't turn the ball over and he won, Shaun. This is a type of guy who you slot into your already set team. It's not a guy that you trade up for from 6 to 4 to get and slot him in with the team without any real weapons, without a solid foundation on the offensive line. An offensive line that has definitely improved from last year, but an offensive line that is still unproven. It's not the type of move that you make. And again, we'll talk about it more next week. Talk about it more if you want, even in this podcast. I think you're right on this, though. There is hype for McCarthy. I just praying that the Giants do not trade up for him. If you want him, let him fall to 6. If he doesn't fall to 6, it wasn't meant to be. It wasn't meant to be. That's all I got to say.
And there was a couple weeks ago, Albert Breer had put out something about talking to Joe Shane. And this stuck with me more than any of the build-up to the draft content. And it was the idea of after the Bills traded up for Josh Allen, everybody in Buffalo was up in arms, including the Buffalo News. I think it was Tim Graham that had wrote at the time, and I could be wrong on that. The wrong Josh, in essence, that they went after Josh Allen instead of Josh Rosen. Oh, how funny that is years later, seeing how different it is. And the lesson that Joe Shane, I guess, had spoken with Breer and other people about that he learned that day is trust your scouting. Trust your evaluation, trust your people, and don't care if the media or the fans scrutinize you, because ultimately they'll be the ones with bouquets at your feet if you've gotten it wrong. And I kept going back to that quote, and I kept trying to put 2 and 2 together. Is he signaling that there's a quarterback we're not going to like? And the whole time I kept thinking, no, they'll take a receiver. Maybe they'll take Bo Nix in the second round. Maybe it'll be Michael Penix. I kept trying to talk myself into that quote not being a flirtation with J.J. McCarthy, but man, maybe it's real. And again, I loved Josh Rosen. I'm sure I could go down. I liked Ryan Tannehill a lot. I could go down a lot of quarterbacks I liked, and I know I was dead wrong on. There have been plenty of quarterbacks I liked, others didn't like, that I was right on, including Lamar Jackson. So I'm not perfect by any means. And anybody listening who pretends to be perfect on watching these college quarterbacks, we all know we've been wrong a ton, and we've been right, because that's just the nature of the thing. We're football fans, and we know what we're watching sometimes. Sometimes we don't know what we're watching. If J.J. McCarthy is the pick, I know I will not be happy. My gut will tell me it's a massive mistake, and we're back spinning the wheels 4 years later. But, man, I pray of all the times I'm wrong on somebody, can I just be wrong on that one? But more on that if and when it happens, and we recap the first round. Now, the current Giant quarterback, Daniel Jones, got to talking to the media because he showed up, I guess, at whatever they're doing now. Is this a mini camp, whatever they got going, which I think is just, by the way, to do this 2 weeks before the draft when your roster is clearly not finished because you have a whole draft coming up. So you're starting meetings in a room without at least 6-7 guys that will be in said room feels crazy. It feels nuts to put people on microphones who might have their jobs replaced in 2 weeks, like Daniel Jones. It just feels really backwards by the NFL. The Giants aren't alone. But anyway, the Giants did this. Daniel Jones met the media. He got asked a really dumb question, got put over, do you believe in yourself? Of course, who do you think should be the Giant quarterback if they draft somebody? The guy has to talk confidently. Why wouldn't he? Should. I want Daniel Jones to believe in himself, even if we've all given up on him. I was going to say for a bad word there. For bleep's sake, that Daniel Jones should be saying those kind of things. But the other thing that did stick out to me was, finally, we got off the whole ACL thing and Daniel Jones' recovery from an ACL. Because to me, he's had a lot of injuries, and the ACL is a major one. I'm more concerned with 2 neck injuries in 3 years. He immediately tore his ACL coming back from the second neck injury. And here's what doesn't add up to me. 1 + 1 usually equals 2. Daniel Jones telling the world his neck injury was simply a stinger. Now, a stinger is not an easy injury to deal with, but if it's a linebacker or a running back, we've all seen the quote-unquote stinger injury be reported. It's kind of like your nerves give you a little bit of a losing feeling. You take a rough shot to the neck. A lot of times a guy can have a stinger. They're right back out there the next week. Daniel Jones is a quarterback, having already previously dealt with a neck injury, wasn't out there for a couple weeks, and only was back out there after Tyrod Taylor got hurt versus the Jets, Bryce. So when I hear Daniel Jones say this, my only reservation is, if it was just a stinger, why was that not reported in the season? Because the stinger makes it feel like a lot less severe than it was. If it's just a stinger, we all would have been like, all right, Daniel Jones is a stinger. He's going to take his time coming back. Telling the world you just have a stinger now is one of two things. Either Daniel Jones preserving his own health for everybody else in public perception, and if he knows the Giants are going to draft the quarterback, or number two, the Giants telling Daniel Jones, tell the world you have a stinger. That's essentially what it was anyway, because if they don't take a quarterback and they do end up at wide receiver, smokescreen season, whatever, they don't want everybody going, how you trust on the quarterback with 2 neck injuries in 3 years if we come back to it's just a stinger. I just don't believe it. I don't believe the simple medical injury Daniel Jones had was a stinger, because if it was that simple, we would have been told that. There's no way we would have buried that it was a stinger in the season.
He's got to do his own PR at this point. He's the only person to be able to support himself right now. He's hearing it from every end, every person in the media, every fan, his own front office, with all the reports specifically stemming from what was said by Rich Eisen during the combine, that it's the worst kept secret. The Giants are done with Daniel Jones. Put yourself in Daniel Jones's shoes. It would be easy to lose your mind as well. He looked like he was going insane at the podium. And it's like, he looked like a lost puppy. I honestly felt bad for the guy. And especially now that we're discussing this and the idea of a damage control and him trying to, use revisionist history to change what happened in the past. Does he really have any other option? Does he really have any other option to just completely BS the media? Because that's technically what he's getting right now. All this BS being reported, whether or not he's going to be 100%. We'll see. We'll see. But the guy is human. He's dealing with insurmountable odds right now to save face in the eyes of the Giants fans, the media, the front office, the ownership. And he's got to, play from behind here, right? He's got to save face. He's got to save his own ass.
Either way, either the Giants are not going to take a quarterback and he's going to be under a ton of pressure, people thinking they should, or they are going to take a quarterback and, he's going to have to find a job elsewhere.
The writing will be on the wall.
Exactly.
The writing will be on the wall. So.
Exactly. Working on a guest for next week as we are in full-blown draft week. Expect 2 episodes next week, a little preview edition, and then we're hoping to drop one Friday morning following the NFL draft, whether we tape that late Thursday night or early Friday. Me and Bryce Boy will figure that out. We'll figure it out. We'll recap it. We'll get things cooking. Remember, if you're wondering when these episodes come out, new listener, classic listener, back to the Paul Dottino days, I appreciate it all. Download, keep us subscribed. One Giant Step, free. Odyssey app, everywhere podcasts are available. Follow Bryce Gelman at Bryce Gelman. Follow me at Shaun Morash. You're going to get plenty of Knicks-related tweets if you're following Bryce Gelman over the next 2 months. Plenty of New York Rangers-related tweets if you're following me.
Wait. Next 2 months, scratch that. Don't say that. Take that out of the universe. I don't want to say that. Don't knock on wood.
No confidence, Bryce?
Knock on wood. I'm a Knicks fan. What do you mean no confidence?
I'm a Rangers fan. We don't win crap either. I'm confident.
You won 30 years ago. The Knicks haven't won since 1972. Okay.
Fair enough. At least I saw it in my lifetime. All right.
Exactly.
At Shaun Morash. Of course, we're going to have the Giant stuff covered, but just if you follow us, where's my Giant stuff? We got it's spring of 94 all over again, baby. Only it's 2024. All right. Thank you, everybody, for listening to One Giant Step. We'll catch you next week.